because during this whole period, he comes out. The first time he gets sent back in for firearms, and the next time he gets sent back in again for another issue. So I think he came out earlier than 2015, and I had a bit of a breakdown of fear, and then sought professional advice, sought counselling. Then he ends up going back to prison. So then I'm fine, or I think I'm fine again. Then he comes out again in 2015. So there was a time I think he came out before 2015, and that's when I had a bit of a nervous breakdown. I was so scared, and just memories of being in my community, walking in the street and being attacked, and nobody did anything. And so just having memories at being at my mum's house, and him throwing stones at the window and shouting out and having to open the window and let him in. And if I don't let him in, he's going to smash my car window. And just, although I'm in my early 20s, I'm having these flashbacks, and I get so scared. And don't realise how scared I am until he's back. So he's back, sought counselling. Then he ends up going back to prison, sentenced, and back to prison for firearms. So then, okay, I'm fine now. But still not really fine. Then he comes back out again in 2015. So although at that point I've had counselling and sought professional help, he is not giving in. He starts up again with the messaging through social media, trying to go through different contacts to get my contact details. Obviously, I'm running an organisation, so it's not hard to get my details. I mean, it's not hard. So, yeah. So in 2015, there was, I'll never forget this moment, because he comes out again in 2015, and he's starting again, and he's trying to manipulate, reach me, and make himself known that he's back. I now report again and go to the police station and report the situation. Now, when you're moving from time from 2008 to 2015, domestic violence is much more of an agenda. It's much more funded, it's much more talked about. I still feel like it's not enough talked about. I don't think there's enough women who are black women that come forward and talk about their experiences. I find a lot of videos online of women who talk about their stories but don't look like myself, and so I feel like it's also important for me to share that as a professional, it could be happening to anybody, to encourage people to be able to, not be afraid to come forward. So 2015 now, I go to the police station and report aggravation that is now taking place again. So I'm in this meeting, I'm in this board meeting, and I'm looking at the report, and they're talking about it says they've in total in the entire borough over a certain period of time, 4 people have come forward. And I'm just looking at the number 4 because I know one of those reports is me. You're all reporting on domestic violence cases reports. One of the people that has reported is actually sitting in the room, and that's so all these things are going through my mind. And yeah, I've got so many thoughts running through my mind, and trying to focus on the board meeting and concentrating and contributing to the board meeting. But I just can't get my eyes off those 4 people because I'm one of them and I'm sitting there. So then I wait to the end, and I approach the chief constable person that was reporting back in that Safer Neighbourhood meeting. I don't outright say, one of those 4 people is me, but I kind of just mention, I'm really passionate about domestic violence. It's an important agenda that I have, and as an organisation, because for 2 years of the organisation, we ran a project specifically for women victims of domestic violence. So we had a Department for Education, we had a DWP Flexible Support Fund funding to work with victims of domestic violence. It was a number of people, elderly, DV, there was a few social groups we had to work with, providing them skills, technical skill training in manufacturing, and then supporting them into manufacturing jobs. So we were funded to support victims of domestic violence. And I'm so proud of that project. So of course, have a personal connection to that. Now, I'm at the Safer Neighbourhood Board meeting, and I'm wondering, should I say anything, shouldn't I? So I start alluding to this project we've got experience in working with, and I start talking about, I'm really passionate about DV, but I don't flat out say I'm one of those people that were reported. And I kind of mentioned it to him, and he didn't pick up the enthusiasm. I would say he might have missed an opportunity. So although I spoke to him after, I think, the meeting was getting late, and he was like, yeah. I think I followed him up once after, and then obviously didn't go anywhere, which was fine. This is now me as an adult and a professional, and the perpetrator is out. And so we're in 2015, and it was difficult because he's no longer taken away for me by his own actions. He's no longer just sent to prison. I have to cope and navigate with an individual on the outside of the bars and doing what I need to do to protect myself. And so, running an organisation, there were periods where there was getting calls at the office. There was just all sorts of aggravation by this individual and people associated to him. Then he ends up getting sent back to prison, raiding houses. He then goes back in again. So I'm happy again. I don't have to mentally deal with an individual. He goes back in again and then comes out again. And I am ready. No nonsense. You even send me if I get a whiff of an account messaging me, I'm putting the whole force of the law, police, the council, everyone, everything. I'm really ready. And so, he comes out again, and I think I'm just finally done with the mental games, the manipulation, and dealing with an individual that clearly is not a nice person, and kind of seeking and sorting out professional support, and knowing that there are now finally, in 2020, organisations and institutions that are here to help victims of domestic violence. And by one phone call, you can call a national organisation who will then help you identify the location you're in and put you in touch with local organisations that can support you. And things move very, very quickly. There's also funding to support, law firms if you're a victim of domestic violence, there's funding available to support lawyers to help you. So there are so much more things in place now to help victims, male or female. And I feel it's so important to continue to share my story, to connect with people that may be, or relate to people that may be going through a similar experience, and acknowledge and know that there are support mechanisms in place to help you, and not being afraid, because I was afraid for too long, and now finally, as our society has moved forward, you don't have to be afraid anymore. So I'm a designer by skill, just going through as a fashion textiles designer, actually, to be specific, and before moving into kind of innovation and management, and then looking at the fashion sector on more of a global scale. And then so I'm really proud of my kind of fashion journey, and kind of looking back in relation to how I was able to navigate that relationship, and move through that period of time, and really kind of not just surviving, but surviving through that period and then thriving once it was finally over. And it was just really based around measures that were finally put in place for women who were trying to leave domestic violence. And so because of that, I was able to get the right resources and access to help in order to help me acknowledge what I have available to me to make sure that I'm safe and that I can't be impacted or affected by somebody that has no right to do that to me anymore. When you finally leave, it's a continuous effort to stay out and just acknowledge and know that you don't have to go back, because there's so much psychological manipulation that goes with abuse, which is why abuse is not just physical, it's also mental abuse. So when he was kind of going into prison, it made it much easier because he's not there. But then as I became into a woman and kind of going through my 20s and then into my 30s and becoming so self-assured of who I am, I was able to build my confidence. And so that's why within the programs that we run at Caramel Rock, key skills like self-confidence, self-esteem, the mentoring, the coaching, those basic life skills is so key in order to survive in the big wide world of life.
These my dollars make it hurt.